The sun will rise every morning because you're faithful, faithful. Your mercies are new every morning because you're faithful, faithful. Every morning I will rise up and worship you. Every morning my praise to you, oh faithful and true. Your majesty proceeds from each dawning. You are faithful every morning. You are my God every morning. You are faithful, faithful. I am your child every morning. Help me be faithful, faithful.
Morning. We made it.
We made it. We had a little bit of some technical difficulties. We
A
appreciate
lot of technical difficulties.
technical difficulties.
Sorry, guys.
So, but we appreciate your patience and
Actually, yeah, that's our pilot, Sally. Sally, can our Facebook friends see you on camera? Can they say hi, Sally? That's our wonderful Sally.
Yay.
Sally handles everything. She's got like some kind of air traffic control panel thing going here. I don't know what she does.
She's the pilot, co-pilot, and then navigator.
And we just sit here and wave, and she flies the plane and makes sure we land safely. So,
So we want to definitely thank her, and for just helping us navigate through these turbulent waters this morning. We also want to thank Ken Pichelle. Ken, want to just say God bless you and thank you so much for allowing us to use your every morning song. And we have some other people that we want to thank also too.
yes,
right?
actually, we want to thank Jeanette Palmer. Jeanette, and we know you're out there watching, and Jeanette has been kind enough to volunteer her time. You know, there's people that work behind the scenes, as in everything in life. There's always people that work behind the scenes to help you. And Jeanette Palmer has so graciously volunteered her time, and she's working with us on program and research development, meaning we want to start having some live guests coming in. We're lining up some terrific guests with
Yes.
terrific stories, inspirational stories, community service, all different kinds of background. So we want to say thank you, Jeanette. I even want to thank Mom and Dad, because I know they're reaching out to some people. So we're lining up some terrific guests for you coming in the future. So we just wanted to thank you for that.
Definitely, because we think that one of the things about A New Day is that it's great to feature people, famous people like Alice Cooper and some others. But we also want to bring you people who are actually right here on Long Island, who have gone through challenges and have overcome them, and have real powerful testimonies to share, as well as they're doing some tremendous community outreach and different things to make a difference for Long Islanders. So we also want to tell you that. You'll notice that today, if you tuned in last time, you should be able to see our logo spinning around and a number underneath. We ask you that for call-ins to happen not when we're doing a video clip.
Right.
So when we're having actual conversation, that would be the ideal time to do that.
Yeah, not during videos, because we wouldn't want to put you'll have to hold online, so we don't really want to put you on hold. So we welcome calls. Please call us during live when we're not on video. So, and actually, Sally, is the phone number on screen? Do you know? Can
Yeah,
they
it
see?
is.
Oh, that is? Oh, great.
Yeah,
So you guys got the
definitely.
phone number. That's awesome. Actually, this morning, I was thinking about this. Our first episode was 2 weeks ago, if you joined us 2 weeks ago, and I think I established firmly that I am the least funny person on the planet. And I was thinking about that this week, how ironic that is that we're at filming from the Governor's Comedy Club, which is filled with so many talented comedians, and people come here to laugh. So I said, it's so ironic that I'm here because, well, you're funny. He cracks himself up with jokes, but I'm not funny. So in that spirit, I said, you know what?
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
want to share a funny story. I'm going to spread my wings a little bit, and I'm going to try to share a little joke with you this morning.
This should be interesting.
He doesn't even know what the joke is.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
don't
tell
know.
him.
She wouldn't tell me.
I don't tell. So be
I'm kinda,
kind.
strapping myself in here to see what it's gonna be.
Don't boo. Be kind. Don't throw tomatoes.
Okay.
Because I'm not a comedian.
Okay.
But actually, I'm pulling a page from those of you who are familiar with Pastor Joel Osteen, who has one of the largest mega churches in America, and he usually starts out his messages with a humorous story. And which this is humorous anyway, because speaking of Joel Osteen, I can't tell you, honey, how many times I could be in a hair salon, I could be in a shop, and we just get into a conversation, and if God comes into the conversation, it's so funny that I have people, they actually like lean in, they say, they kind of whisper, I watch Joel Osteen from all different backgrounds. True story. We went to one of those of you who know Valentina from the Long Island Breakfast Club. We went to one of her events a while ago, and we were just we were circulating the room, chatting up some people.
Right.
And we had a lady, and she, as soon as they find out, we're pastors, we had a lady come and she kind of said, I'm Jewish, but I watch Joel Osteen. She goes, I really like his messages.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I always find it so humorous that, there are, I know there's those secret Joel Osteen watchers out there. I know
Yeah.
you're watching. You know who you
They're
are.
definitely out there.
So anyway, this is kind of for you. He shared a humorous, funny story about a senior citizen who was driving down the freeway in his brand new Corvette with the top down, and he was going 80 miles an hour. Okay, this is a senior citizen. So he's traveling down there, and he sees flashing lights behind him. So without thinking, instead of stopping, he puts the pedal to the pedal, and he speeds up to 100 miles an hour. And so at that point, now he's hearing the sirens behind him.
Oh, okay.
So then he pulls over, the senior pulls over, and he says to the officer, the state trooper, State Trooper, officer, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. So the state trooper says to him, listen, it's Friday, it's 4 o'clock, I'm almost ready to go off my shift. If you can tell me a reason why you're speeding that I've never heard before, then I'll let you go. So the senior thought about it for a minute, and he said, officer, he said, years ago, my wife ran off with a state trooper. And he said, I thought you were trying to return her back. I thought that was, and the officer said,
Yeah,
thank you,
that's a
sir.
good-
Have a good weekend.
That's a good one. I like that.
I thought you were trying to return her. So anyway,
Oh,
that's my
that's
little joke. Just to start off the morning with some humor, so we're not so serious all the time. But anyway, on that note, we have a challenge for you, our viewers, our Facebook friends, wherever you're viewing. Send us, if you have any clean, family-friendly jokes or funny stories that you would like to share, send it, check out our website, send it to us, email it to us. You can go to anewday.nyc and send us your funny stories, your family-friendly jokes. Remember, they have to be rated G now.
Right.
And we'll read them on air. So as you send them in, we'll read out these funny stories. So that's our challenge to you guys this morning.
That's great.
So
So
moving on.
we're continuing our Spotlight series with Alice Cooper. And this time we're really going to look at Alice, which is Vincent really is his real name, and Sheryl Fernier, up close and personal. So Sally's getting ready to gear up. We ask you that when you bring it up, just zoom in to what the screen that's
zoom
above
in.
my head, and then turn up the volume so that you can hear it more clearly.
Yeah, we're actually piggybacking on to, just to give this video a little context for you. It's actually an interview that Sheryl and Vincent Cooper did with relationship coaches, married couple, young couple. You'll see them, Jocelyn and Aaron Freeman. So we're kind of piggybacking on this video. It's a long video, so we're not
into what Alice is now,
So it may
where
look a little choppy, but bear with us because we're going to zoom in and give you highlights from this interview. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Okay, ready.
it's a family show.
Yeah. Well, and how do you think that people can sense that in your relationship? And do you get to then share the faith foundation of your relationship with other couples so that you can counsel them in a way?
I think you earn the right to be heard. It's based on relationships. Everybody with whom you come in contact is ripe and really desperate for the good news of Christ. And some know it, some don't know it. But I think you earn the right to be heard. And through love, your lifestyle, planting seeds, you earn the right to be able to talk to them.
I think it's how you treat people. People notice more than anything else how you treat people. You know, I've always said I treat the guy that's sweeping the floor the same way as I treat the guitar player.
Yeah.
They all have my respect on every level. I never talk down to anybody, you know, unless it's in a joking way, you know. The band knows that. You know, so, and you'll notice that they go, what is it about? You know, this couple that is so attractive. It's the fact that, well, we do love each other, of course, but there's the light of Christ is hopefully coming from us. I mean, it should be.
Yeah.
You know, and
I have to ask myself sometimes, is there anybody that we know that doesn't know that we're believers? And if that's the case, why?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I do a lot of interviews. I'm very vocal about it, but I always said I will not bring it up unless they bring it up, and if they do, I will absolutely tell. I'm very, very, very vocal about who I am.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's turned a lot of people off. It's, you know, it affects your status in this world, but at the same time, it would be worse if they went, "Oh, you're Christian. That's nice."
Like
It's much better to
innocuous.
be Christian and be dangerous.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I always tell people that maybe the most rebellious thing Alice Cooper ever did was become Christian. People think, well, you know, the hanging and the guillotine and the chickens and the stain and the blood and everything. I said, that's showbiz.
Yeah.
I said, what's rebellious? Certainly not tearing up a hotel room. Anybody can do that. I said, deciding to follow Christ, that's rebellious. Because who was the biggest rebel of all time was Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
He rebelled against the world.
Who said, what does it profit a person to gain the whole world and lose his soul? What will you give in exchange for your soul?
Do you ever notice there are people that you know, couples that you know that you're attracted to?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a
Wow, that was a really powerful
Yeah.
segment.
There's a lot of meat. You know, we were just saying last night, there's so much meat on this bone with this interview with them. I love our Spotlight series because I don't know if you're like me, but I love to peel back the layers like an onion and see who famous or well-known people or successful people really are.
Right.
And so that's just something I enjoy seeing. Who are the people outside of the spotlight? Who are the people off the stage? And so the interview you're going to see this hour really gives you a really nice look at this couple, you know, out of the spotlight. And so he said even a mouthful there, and we were talking about it, that what does it mean to be a Christian? And, you know, we were talking about a lot of people have a concept that Christianity is for weak people, for people who can't handle life, people who can't get it together. Oh, that's nice, you're a Christian, you know, it works for you.
It works for you.
And, you know, it's for people who can't cope. That's what they think Christianity is for. When in reality, we were talking about this, that it takes so much strength and courage to be a Christian, to trust a God that you cannot visually see. To go through life and trust God, knowing that even if my circumstances aren't good, God is good, and He has a plan for me. And you know what kind of strength and courage that takes? Christianity is not for the weak-minded. It's not for the timid. It takes a lot of courage to go against the grain in the world when everyone's going left and you go right. And this whole thing about trusting, it takes a lot of strength to trust a God that you can't see. You can't get on the phone and call that way. And so we were talking about this whole flip side of a coin where on one end it takes strength to really walk with Jesus, to really know Jesus, and yet it takes a certain amount of weakness and vulnerability and surrender to trust Him, because that's what trust is. It's letting go. And so I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
No, I mean, I think that's true. I think that, people think that only if I'm weak and only, if I'm a drug addict or, an alcoholic or a criminal, I've reached rock bottom, I can't sink any further than where I'm at, then all of a sudden, Jesus becomes an option for me. It's almost like the final option, like, pull in case of emergency type of thing. But what's interesting about, Alice Cooper's story is that he had everything. He had money, he had fame, he had cars, he had houses, he had everything. If you tuned in 2 weeks ago, he said, I had it all, but then I had a God-sized hole in my life that none of the toys of life could fill, and I felt empty. And so I thought that was very powerful, because people think that, it's a final option, but in actuality, we struggle more without Jesus than we struggle with Jesus. Because Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the thoughts and the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, plans for good and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. And that word evil encompasses so many different things, which I won't even get into in the meaning in the Hebrew. It's deep. And so what the plans that God has for each one of us are good plans. But sometimes those good plans take us through some tough roads, some difficult roads, some challenging roads that make us a better person on the inside to prepare us for the gifts on the outside. I've always said this, that many times the things that you dream and that you hope and that you wish for are kind of up here, let's say level 10, right? But you're down here, let's say at level 3. And you have to go through these different things of maturing and really growth. Like, for example, this may be a strange example, but I'll use it anyway. You have people who win the lottery and win a ton of money, and within a year they're totally broke. Right. Because they just burned right through all their money. They did not have the maturity to handle the responsibility that came with that money and those finances. So God doesn't give you things to destroy you and to beat you up, but he gives you things to bless you and for you to use it. So God has a plan, and when you go with that plan, you're going to reach the highest levels of success that you can possibly imagine. And I experienced that myself, because I had, like him, reached that crisis of faith when I was in the Army. And then when God turned me around, I began to see successes in areas of my life that I had strived to try to achieve, but I did not have the spiritual maturity or the emotional maturity to be able to handle those things. But when I was ready, then I was able to move into those things.
No, good point. And that's that whole thing about, being a Christian is kind of a combination of strength and weakness,
Yes.
like we were saying before. On the one hand, it takes such an amount of internal fortitude to really trust God.
Yes, definitely.
And yet it requires a surrender, saying, God, I let go and I trust you, like that Carrie Underwood song, Jesus, take the wheel. It really is about him taking the wheel in your life. And we were talking about this earlier, that people equate anger with strength. And anger is not strength.
Yes.
I mean, anybody can be angry at God. Anybody can shake their fists at God. Anyone can blame God. That doesn't require any kind of strength.
Right.
But to really trust him when things are going wrong,
that's
when
that's
you
the
don't
big
understand
challenge.
what's happening in life or why it's happening, that's strength. That is really true courage and strength. And Allison or Vincent said, and he made a comment, he said that, I want to quote him properly, who is the biggest rebel of all time? He said, Jesus Christ. And I thought that was great, because we don't think of Jesus in the terms of being a rebel, but think about it. Jesus rebelled against the whole religious system.
That's
He
right.
rebelled against the religious system of that time. He turned the whole religious world
Absolutely.
upside down.
Absolutely.
And so I thought about that. That was a really fantastic quote about him.
Because, Jesus made God accessible.
Yes.
Okay? Into the religious system that expanded for 1,500 years before Christ was born was human-made. Obviously God gave laws and gave commandments. And the purpose was really, when you go back to Mount Sinai, is he wanted to make them a nation of kings and priests. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to be, measure us by our performance. And God said, okay, I will. And nobody can meet his standard. That's why Jesus came to fulfill the law. But God was a deity that was so far away and so distant that people felt hopeless and helpless. And Jesus came, and all of a sudden he made God so approachable and so reachable. That's why everybody followed him. I mean, the sinners, the prostitutes, the tax collectors, the dregs of society followed him because he never rejected anyone.
Right.
And really, when we first started this show, I remember when we were talking to Tony and Eric and Sally, and my initial conversation with Tony, when he asked me questions about the show, we were like, listen, there are people, and there's many of you who are watching this, who'll never walk into a church building. Just won't, because maybe there's a stigma, maybe you've been hurt, maybe you've been rejected. We want to give you a view of a God that maybe you didn't know existed, that's approachable, that loves you and accepts you just the way you are. And I think that's really what he came, and that was incredibly rebellious. And who were the people that were after him all the time was the religious institution, because he was flipping on upside down their world.
Right. So, I think Sally's going to set up the next part of the interview for us at 12:45, Sally.
Trust. I wanted to hit on that, so I'm so glad you mentioned that word.
Yeah.
With your lives having been so full, we say full instead of busy, but really full. You've been all over the world. You've done so many different things. How do you maintain trust in your relationship? Because I think a lot of couples think trust will just be there. So how do you keep that strong?
I think it is just there. I don't even have to think about it. I've never once even thought, I wonder what Cheryl's doing. And I'm sure she's the same with me. Maybe when we first got married, there's that feeling out period of, rock star, girls everywhere, da-da-da-da-da. I think that we got past that pretty early in our life, knowing each other, that neither one of us were going to cheat. I mean, I knew I was never going to cheat on her, and I knew the quality of Sheryl, that's just not her. There was never, I don't think I've ever thought about her ever cheating on me.
Yeah.
So that's maybe something that God put into the recipe for our marriage, that I'm going to take alcohol away. I'm going to take this whole trust thing and make that an important thing. And I think God kind of, builds that marriage on those things, because I know people that just, nice people that just really don't trust each other.
Right. Sheryl, what would you say?
Trust is earned. It really is. I mean, you have to show who you are. There's no second agenda when it comes to me or to him. And as I said earlier, my job is to make him look good. So he knows that. He knows I have his best interest at heart. So where he falls down, I'll stand up. Where I can't, he swoops in. And so it's a great partnership, and it's never 50-50. The intent is to be 100 and 100, but sometimes it looks like 90-10, 60-40. It's always shape-shifting, but the intent is to build each other up.
Well, when people always say, this is my better half, I always go, this is my better 80%. I'm only 20%. She's carrying the ball 80% of the time, Now that may not be true, but it's
It's what you're intending.
That's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah.
It made me think of when you talked about reasons.
So,
Okay, great.
we got a lot going on.
Yeah, we got
Bear
a
with
lot
us.
going on.
Poor
Bear
Sally,
with
we-
us.
Sorry, we were doing like a lot
Yeah.
of strategy,
Strategy,
talking, like
flipping
just
around, trying to figure
more
out what to do.
computer
type of
stuff and
thing, yeah.
stopping and going, and I had more questions than I probably should have. So sorry about that.
We've
No
thrown
problem.
the kitchen sink at Sally this morning, and
No,
she's a real
it's
trooper.
totally
She's
fine.
So,
I had the black plague like all week long,
Yeah.
so my brain is still fuzzy.
That's right. Sally's been sick all week, and she's a real trooper. She came in feeling
Yeah.
better, Sally.
No, I feel fine now. I just I should have. Even when you're talking to me, like it takes me an extra 10 seconds to realize what you're saying. So sorry, but
That's all right.
I have to say the coffee is outstanding. So it'll take me another 7 seconds, and I'll be back.
all right.
Yeah, we actually brew fresh coffee every show. So actually, in a future show, we're going to let you guys in on what coffee we bring, because it's like wonderful. It's the
Awesome.
best
It
coffee
definitely
ever.
is.
That's another show. Okay, anyway.
So, honey, so Sheryl said something really powerful. She said, trust is earned. And she said, my job is to make him look good. And talk about the importance of having one another's back in a marriage, but, it can also be applied to various
Yeah,
different relationships.
Exactly. I mean, not only just marriage, but I think, trust is so vital. Trust is so important in personal relationships because, actually in our church, we actually had a message about this once, how you don't trust strangers. You ever know the people you trust? You're not going to trust a stranger
That's right.
because you don't know a stranger.
Exactly right.
You're only going to trust a very narrow circle of people. And those are the people that, in a way, have earned your trust. They're in your narrow center here. And so you don't just go around trusting anyone. So, trust is so vital to the health of any relationship.
true.
And it's vital to we call horizontal relationships
Right.
going this way. But it's vital for the vertical relationship with God. That if you don't really know, you think about it, you're going to trust people that you know have your back and that you know love you.
Right.
Just the way you are. They've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they love you.
Exactly.
And that love is the component that fosters trust.
Exactly.
So the way it is on a horizontal level really is the way it is on a vertical level with God. If you don't know that God loves you unconditionally, just the way you are,
Right.
you really won't be able to trust him. Not fully. There'll always be something inside you kind of wondering like, well, I don't know. Is he really going to be good to me this time
Exactly.
around? I don't know. Can I really trust him? So that love is what's essential to trust.
And the other thing too that was really something that was covered in the previous clip, but I think it's appropriate when we talk about trust being earned. And it was a very powerful statement, and it was what I saw here was talking about that relationships give you the right to be heard, right? Mm-hmm. So when you have trust, so how is relationships built? By trust. You meet someone, you have a friend, and then over time, your friend is there for you. You start to, establish some familiarity, and you feel like, okay, I trust this person. And then as you're in relationship, it gives you the right. Like if you see a friend going down the wrong path, what are you doing? What's going on? Because you're in relationship with that person. Right. If you're not in relationship with someone, you don't have the right to speak into that person's life. That person will reject your counsel, your opinion, or you butting in. It's like, who are you? Who are you to speak into my life? But what I think was powerful is that when you're in a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, you have the right to be heard. You have the right to prayer, to go into God's presence and pray and ask for what you need. Jesus talked about that when he was on earth. Whosoever shall say in Mark 11:23, but in 11:24, therefore I say unto you, the child of God, whatever you desire when you pray, believe that you receive it and you will have it. There's a sense of relationship. In John chapter 14 to, I think, 17, Jesus spoke very differently with them. He said, I don't no longer call you servants because a servant doesn't know what their master is doing, but I call you friends. So he was elevating their relationship with him and subsequently with God, where now I'm God's friend and I'm also God's child, so I have a right to be heard. I have a right to come. You have a right to complain too. Hey, why is this going on? What's happening? You may not get an answer, but you have a right to convey your feelings and your emotions and have him speak into your life. And so I think that the beautiful thing is about trust is earned, and creates relationships, and relationships give you the right to be heard and to be able to speak into someone's life. And conversely, because you're in a relationship, God has the right to speak into your life too. We just are a little thick-headed and don't listen.
Which is what we always said. It's not religion. It's all about relationship.
Exactly.
I think Sheryl said that. So since we're moving a little behind, I guess we'll
Let's
scoot
jump
right
into
into
the
video.
next one.
Now this clip is going to be a little longer, so I think you'll enjoy it. A little less of us talking, a little more of Vincent and Sheryl. And you might get paused for a little brief commercial. Just ignore the commercial, and we're going to scoot right through.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm just wondering, for you guys, can you look back and see that in your time you've been married, were events where you said, why is this happening, or this event is critical, and now looking back, you're like, that was meant that we learned something about us or something about God in particular, that now you're actually grateful for. I'm actually glad that happened.
Well, that certainly speaks to the alcoholism and the drug abuse for me. Mm-hmm. I was leader of the pack when it came to the party in LA. It was me and Keith Moon and Jim Morrison and Jimi Hendrix, and the party was going on at all times, and I didn't realize I was becoming an alcoholic. I honestly didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, I think I'm an alcoholic. It was very gradual until I started realizing that the alcohol was medicine and it wasn't alcohol anymore. And we had to live through that. We had to, I don't think she ever quit believing in me, but she had to, at some point, move away and let me get to the bottom of the rung on the ladder and look up and go, help. And that's when she went, let's go, hospital. And that was the right time, right? And I knew I needed somebody to do that.
Yeah.
So her and Shep, my manager, both said, you're going. And I don't think I put up much of a fight. I went, oh no, what time are we going? Because I know I was pretty close. Doctor was saying, you're getting pretty close to joining your buddies, in the 27-year-old club, and I was a little past that, But yeah, that was a very tough one. And people even now go, if you could live your life over, would you change that? And I go, no. Because that was a huge hurdle for me. The fact that I don't think there's a picture of me ever before 1983 without a beer in my hand.
Yeah. Well, and Sheryl, there's so many women, I'm sure, that listen, and there's been some sort of dynamic with their husbands, some who are listening. How did you maintain your commitment? How did you every day just remind yourself of who you were as a
I love the new My WW program because it's tailored to you. Take the personal assessment and get matched
of who you were as a wife?
I had to move away, as he said. I took our then 2-year-old daughter and moved back to Chicago with my family and let God deal with it. Taking my daughter to church, even I fell away for a while. I made a profession of faith when I was 10 years old, fully embracing Christ as my Savior as a child with childlike faith, but not childish. And then at 14, I really had that amazing experience of God in my heart, in my life, complete transformation. And then I came into the world of rock and roll, where it wasn't sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but it was just Sundays tend to evaporate into other days of the week, and church attendance lapsed, and one day became like another, and it took a while to get back. But in moving away, I went back into the church, and our reconciliation was based on one thing, and only one thing. Not a list of manifestos, not a list of rules. It was this. The counselor said, do you think that you could commit to going to church once a week together? I was shocked. I thought, excuse me, I have a list of things we need to talk about. He said, no, do you think that you can agree to this? He said yes, I said yes, and that was where God really started to work in our lives, being under great gospel teaching, great biblical authority, and just having a heart transplant and maturity of character. And if I didn't love him enough already, I continued to fall more deeply in love. Any bride that looks at her husband on their wedding day and says, I don't think I'll ever love him any more than I could possibly love him at this moment, is foolish. If it's real love and it's grounded in the love and grace of God, you're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, you love each other more as you grow, more as you learn. Absolutely, I love
Well,
that.
it was serious for me too, to actually to prove to her, and there was no reason she would believe me, because I had an addictive personality. Everything I did was addictive. So if I had a beer, I couldn't have one beer. I had one beer that lasted about 15 years. And when it came to drugs, when I had one hit of this, I went off of it. I was just an addictive personality. And so it was very hard for her to believe that that personality was going to change. And those things that she saw with me all the time were going to not be there. She says, we're going to go to a Christian counselor, but you set it up. And I went, okay. I took it as, the gauntlet was thrown down. I said, if you think that I'm going to lose this battle of, I said, and then I got addicted to being straight. I got totally addicted to the sobriety, which I think that was the thing that really worked for me. The addictive personality turned on itself, and then I got addicted to being sober. So the last thing I would think about was having a drink. The doctors even said, your alcoholism is unprecedented. You walked out of the hospital and never went to AA, and never had a sponsor, and never had another drink. And I went, right. And they said, well, that's impossible. I said, no, it's a miracle. I said, I'm not a cured alcoholic, I'm a healed alcoholic. That's a big difference. It's as if it never happened.
He says he doesn't have a sponsor, he has a savior.
I've heard that. That's amazing. I love that.
But that's really true. God just took it out of my life. And they say, well, what was the process? I said, there's no process.
Yeah.
I walked out of the hospital and
Just believing.
you could put a drink in front of me in the most high pressure situation, and that would never even come into play. I wouldn't even think of it.
Yeah.
It would be like having a loaded gun there. I'd say, oh, well, put it out to my head. That's what a drink might as well have poison in it.
Yeah.
Because I would go, well, what is that? Get that.
That's great. That's powerful. So what are your thoughts about what they said? There's a
I-
lot
I-
of meat on that
Yeah,
bone.
I just love that this one quote. He said, I'm not a cured alcoholic. I'm a healed alcoholic. That's a big difference. It's as if it never happened.
That's powerful.
And I just thought, what a beautiful picture, really, of not only what happened in his life, but a beautiful picture of what happened at the cross. When Jesus died, it was like he took our sins, he took our failures, he took our shortcomings, our hurts, our offenses, our regrets, and he nailed it to the cross with himself,
Right.
as if it never happened. When he said, it is finished, what that means was it paid in full.
That's
When
right.
Jesus said it is finished at the cross, he meant it's paid in full. Every failure, every regret, every shortcoming, paid in full as if it never happened. And you often preach this. Jesus didn't just come to cover our sins. He came to completely erase them.
Exactly
As
right.
if they never happened. I thought it was such a powerful picture with him. He said it's as if he never was an alcoholic.
That's
he was
right.
just gone.
And I think the journey of life for us is discovering the depths of that love that was demonstrated on the cross, is to be able to fully enter into that. Because you when you come into a saving knowledge of Jesus, you're like, wow, this is great or whatever. And then life brings its challenges. It's never going to be a bed of roses. It's never going to be, like a smooth paved road. I mean, you're going to do a lot of off-roading, right?
Right.
You're dealing with a God who's a rebel. Okay, Jesus was a rebel. So life is going to be unexpected and unscripted from your perspective, but not from his. He's got a plan and he's following it. But I think it's as you grow in that relationship that we talked about before, and that trust and relationship back and forth, then the full breadth and the depth of what God did for you on Calvary becomes more and more real to you. And then you start to walk it out more and more. And then you start to see victory and success and different things, addictions, whatever, bad habits or whatever attitudes, all of a sudden begin to change and be transformed because of this relationship that you have. I mean, when the deeper you go in that relationship and you start to see how much you're loved, you start to trust him more.
That's right.
You start to let go of things more. You start to live a life that's more carefree than careful. And I think that's really powerful.
Right.
And how it just changes the dynamics of your life. You end up becoming more restful, more relaxed. Blood pressures go down, everything goes down because it's, life is not on you anymore. You got a partner. You have somebody who's with you, who's in you, and who's for you.
Who's for you.
Yes.
Which is, I think that's awesome that, God is for you. A lot of people think, he's sitting up there in heaven waiting for me to fail. Just
Exactly.
waiting for me to mess up so he can pound me over the head.
Exactly.
And nothing could be further from the truth. He's a loving Heavenly Father. He's for you. He's not against you. And I think that's been the whole heart of our ministry.
That's right.
To tell
It's just
people
to unveil this wonderful God. Everybody's path is a little different into being conformed into the image of Jesus. But, God has good plans. It's not like he's a party pooper and he wants to just take all the fun out of life. No, he wants to he wants you to enjoy life. You know, he came that we might have life and life more abundantly. And that Greek word is like super abounding life. I mean, if life was good before Christ, it's even better after. You know, you just find yourself not having to go through some of the things that your neighbors end up going through, and the people that you know that don't know him. It's like your safety net. You know, you swing for the parking lot, you reach out, and you stumble and you fall, and he's there to catch you.
Right. Well, we have 2 more video clips coming up, and I think Sally's going to prepare us for the next one. And I think that one of the best things about being a Christian, really, is that you don't get the answer to all your questions. I mean, there's still things in life that, you know, we don't know why they happen or why it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. But I think the key is that even when things go wrong, I have a savior, I have a friend, I have someone I can trust in, that I know he has my good interests at heart.
Right.
And that he'll bring me through. I think that's the key.
That's
It's not that everything becomes a bed of roses when you're a
Right.
Christian. No, there's a lot of hard things to go through. But the key is you have someone going through it with you, and he brings you through.
That's right. You're not alone.
Yeah. So Sally, I don't know. Are we up to video clip 4?
So what does partnership mean to you two?
Well, you know, Sheryl had a great, she says, marriage is 2 dysfunctional people who just refuse to give up on each other. I love that because it's so true. Name me 2 people that are living together, married to each other, that are, you know, wacko in this way and wacko in this way, and yet the other person goes, I can live with that. I can live with that. Okay, I can live. I'm not giving up on you. You know. Okay. You know. And sometimes you don't see your own insanity. But that's really true. You just never give up on each other. You know.
And Sheryl, I heard you say once that never waste a good crisis.
Oh, never. Never. It's a great teaching tool. You know, you go back and revisit it and sometimes think, is this a test? And if it is, help me pass it, because I got nothing here. And watch him carry you through.
When have you ever done anything that where you grew where it wasn't uncomfortable? It's frustrating. It's this. As you see where you want to go and you can't get there, but you keep going until you do get there.
Yeah, I
You
love.
Wow. There's a lot in that segment.
Marriage is too, well, she said dysfunctional. I say imperfect. Marriage is 2 imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other. That's the key. You never give up on each other. I
That's
thought that was such
definitely
a
true.
wonderful definition of marriage, really.
It is, and I think that you know, one of the things that I thought was nice is that, you know, his quote was, when have you ever done anything where you grew where it wasn't uncomfortable? It's frustrating. You know, it's like you see where you want to go and you can't get there. And there's a lot of things, because as I was mentioning before, you know, we want to get to level 7, but we're still at 3. There's still a road to take us there. And I think the more stubborn and the more resistant we are with what God is trying to do in our lives, the tougher life becomes. It's more difficult. And clearly, you know, you're not exempt from trouble, because Jesus himself says, in this life you will have tribulations and trials. But, which negates in the English everything he just said, be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. He's gone before you. You know, when I was in the Army in the 82nd, we used to have these guys called Pathfinders, and they would be the first ones to jump in and mark the drop zones and prepare. So Jesus becomes this Pathfinder that he's gone and prepared a way for us, and so we have to follow him. But, you know, we tend to be stubborn people, and our attitude is like, well, I know better. So I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to do this on my own, and then you end up getting lost in the woods, and he has to come get you. Right. So that's what are your thoughts?
Well, I like what he said about when have you ever done anything where it wasn't uncomfortable, which you were just talking about. You know, growth is uncomfortable by virtue. That's why they call it growing pains.
Yeah, exactly.
Growth is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. A lot of us don't want to change, and we don't want to branch out into new things. You know, I think about how we even came here to Gov's Radio, meeting Valentina, and I know I had told her this in the past, which, by the way, Valentina, we send our prayers to you, best wishes. She's not feeling well, so we're trusting God for a quick recovery for you, Valentina.
Yes.
We send love and hugs to you. But I've told her that, I said, you know, I really admire Valentina. Those of you who know Valentina from the Breakfast Club. Here's a woman that's had a lot of obstacles.
Yes.
She hasn't had things handed to her. You know, she's had a lot of obstacles, physical challenges, financial challenges, career challenges. And anyone who knows that woman, like, she doesn't let anything hold her down.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's branched out into new experiences, new careers, new connections. I really admire the perseverance. There's something to be said for perseverance and persistence.
Right.
And so we were telling, even for us, I think I mentioned it on the last show, this is like jumping out of a plane for us. Because although we have a church and we share with people, we've never gone on live, broadcasting before.
Right.
So we're kind of jumping out of a plane. And I think that's what we encourage our people to do, to take that leap of faith.
Yes.
Because, you know, growing does require you to take a leap.
It does,
of faith.
absolutely.
And so that's what this is all about for us.
Definitely. And I love something that Sheryl said, never waste a good crisis.
Yes.
You know, when you go through difficulties, the first thing that we tend to want to do is to just throw in the towel. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I can't take this anymore. You know, some people go ahead and get medicated and they take some type of sedative and then they just pull the covers over their head and they just want to sleep through it. And I think when what she was saying is don't waste a good crisis, because when things happen, it's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn something about yourself. Like in that moment, something happens and you look at your reaction, whether it's fear, anger, you know, whatever it is, there's something underlying underneath that's triggering that. And in that moment, that's a great opportunity to be like, you know, why did I react that way? Why am I afraid about this particular situation? Why am I afraid of this upcoming meeting? Why am I afraid to lose my job, lose my house, lose whatever it is? You know, we get nasty grams in the mail, emails, you know, bill collectors and the whole bit. And we always go, or the doctor's like, you know, we're going to have to run another test or do another whatever. And we automatically go into the worst case scenario. It's like, oh my God, I have this, I have that. We're kind of wired that way. And it goes back to that whole trust thing we talked about earlier. You know, when you trust God and you're in relationship with God, the more you grow in that relationship, the more you go along your journey. You know, when I was in the service and I was in the Army, we used to train so hard, harder than real combat was. And they did that for a reason. They tried to throw everything, including the kitchen sink and the kitchen, at you, so that when the real thing happened, it was like muscle memory. You just kind of relax and you know, adjust, adapt, improvise, overcome. But, you know, God is no different. God allows these things to come into our lives to mold our character, to make us stronger inside. Because the higher you go, all the wonderful things that God has planned for your life requires growth, the maturity, and it's like a muscle. If you don't exercise it, you get muscle atrophy. Right. Well, for us, our faith is exercised through difficulties, because faith is trusting God. It's not something you work up. It's something you yield to. When you're in a relationship, you trust. And trust is really saying, I'm going to take my hands off of this, take my hands off the wheel and let you drive.
That's right. Well, I think we have our final clip, and then we're going to wind down and sign off. And Sally's got, I think, gearing it up for us, a final brief clip from the Coopers. Enjoy it.
So, for whatever's on your heart, what would you really want to give to the listeners and those that would be tuning in?
Well, let's understand first and foremost where that power comes from. We're not the power couple, but we rely on a power much greater than ourselves, our Creator.
Yeah.
And that's who we serve.
We are not afraid to be led. You know what I mean? You should know that. You too. You've both given up careers to do what you do because you were led to do it.
You responded to a calling.
Not comfortable, was it?
Nope, I was not. I was on my knees, and I heard the message.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
See, and then that's. But look at where you are. You know, and that was the same. You know, that's the same for all of us. I mean, it's just, don't be afraid to be led, as long as you're being led by the right.
And
thing.
asking the question, I hear, like, what I hear in that is like, people think they need to figure out the answer. What's the answer? What's the answer? What do I do? But instead asking, what would you have me do?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the takeaway for people. I love that. It's amazing.
Melt me, mold me, fill me, use me.
Well, thank you both so much. I've taken away so much. I know our audience has taken away so much inspiration. Any last words?
No, thank you so much for not only having us sit down and talk with you, but to be here at your facility for teens here in Phoenix. Love that you've taken not only what you're both really your skills and your own purpose, but have molded that into who you are as a couple, and now you just share that legacy with the world.
You know what it is? It's an outward expression of an inward transformation.
Yes.
What she said.
Yeah. Ditto.
Oh, that's just
That's
great.
funny. I don't think we can say it any better. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
than what they said. I love what she said. We're not the power couple, but we rely on a power much greater than ourselves, our Creator. It's an outward expression of an inward transformation. So, and I think that's what Jesus really came to do, was to heal us from the inside out. From the inside out. That's really what Christianity is all about. Not from the outside in, from the inside out.
Exactly.
A new life. And final quote, I know Alice said, don't be afraid to be led.
Exactly.
Which is what we were talking about the whole of the show. It really requires a strength to trust God and yet a willingness to yield and to let go. Really, Christianity, really, when you think about it, following Jesus is really all about letting go.
That's exactly
Letting go.
right.
It's not about taking more on myself and doing more and being better and trying to be a better person. Christianity is actually the opposite. It's letting go and letting God.
That's exactly
work in
right. It's definitely about, leadership in terms of being led by God. Many times, fortunately, I didn't go through a lot of it when I was in the service, but one or two times we had some, platoon leaders who were just totally clueless, and thank God the battalion commander sent them packing. But, when you have confidence in your leadership and the people and you trust them, if they tell you, hey, we're going over here, you don't think about it. You just go. You trust that they're making the right decision. It's no different with God. The more you trust him, the more you're in relationship with him, the more you understand how much he loves you, the more yielded you're going to be. You're going to be like, you know what, this doesn't make absolutely no sense to me, but I trust God. And, I think about, that one of my favorite verses, like, this I recall to mind, therefore I have hope. It is of the Lord's mercies that we're not consumed. Great is thy faithfulness. Right. So sometimes you got to remember, not the bad things, but remember the times when your goose was almost cooked and God was good and he showed up.
Absolutely.
When you thought like I was going to lose my job and it didn't happen. The accident that you were spared from, whatever it is, those are moments where God showed up. And there's other times that God shows up all the time and we don't even know.
Right.
We don't know what we've been spared from. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier to be led by someone who you trust and someone who you respect and someone who has it all together. I mean, you're dealing with someone who's leading you, who created all this, who knows what's going to happen in the next minute, in the next hour, in the next day. And he knows the end from the beginning. So it's not like anything's going to catch him by surprise. So you're in really great hands. Absolutely great hands.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think we actually overcame a lot of obstacles.
Yes, we
today.
did today.
Sally landed the plane safely. A big clap for
Yay,
Sally.
Sally.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
You had no idea what she had to go through this morning.
Yeah, we had a lot of
behind the
technical
scenes.
difficulties. But, we appreciate those of you who stuck with us. And
Yes.
and things will get better. It's like everything else. You got to learn to crawl, and then you learn to walk, and then you learn to run. So
we'll be back in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Which is February 15th, I
That's
believe.
correct, February
Saturday,
15th.
Day after Valentine's Day for all you lovebirds out there.
Right.
Day after Valentine's Day. And stick around for our closing slide if you want to contact us. That's where you'll see the information, our website, anewday.nyc. Remember, send in any funny stories
Yes.
you might have or jokes. We'll be happy to read them on the air.
Great.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Be blessed.
Be blessed.
You are my God every morning. You are faithful, faithful. I am your child every morning. Help me be faithful, faithful. Every morning I will rise up and worship you. Every morning my praise to you, oh faithful and true. the seeds from each dawning. You are faithful every morning.
When I work with people, Troy, and they're thriving,